Hello, hello. Welcome to our 16th episode.
Oh, is it 16th? I wrote
It's
15th.
yes, it's the 16th episode. And this week we are talking about breath. So I'm Karen Alexander.
And I'm Linda Melanson.
And this is Where's Your Focus? So our focus this week is breath. The first thing we always do, though, is talk about the Schumann's resonance. There's not really a whole lot different there in the resonance itself. On disclosurenews.it, we are still at a power of 14, which we were at last week. It did fluctuate, though, over the last week. It went anywhere from 8 to 46 power, but we're still staying around the same for the hertz. So anywhere between 7.3 to 8.6 or so is what we're doing for the hertz there. And yeah, so that's in Italy and Russia. There's something interesting that I want to talk about after, but I'm going to go into the heart map one as well, because that one's a little more interesting. There's 7 places there. We talk about it all the time, and South Africa is always the one that's always so much higher than the rest with regards to the power. Last week, it had gone, it was lower last week. It was somewhere around 200, I think, 219. Well, during the last week, it actually went from 440 to 150 to 216. So it's kind of doing that wave, but 440 was quite high. It did get down to 150, and the lowest it's been since it came back online in February is 119. So it went pretty low. But the other ones are a little more interesting. We've got California we've got Saudi Arabia, Lithuania, and Alberta that are still kind of doing this wave, right? But California and New Zealand are not doing a wave. They're kind of this week, like within the last week, they kind of just went up. So they haven't come down at all. Like California was at 40.5 on March the 12th. We last aired on March the 10th. So 2 days later is at 40, went to 46, and now it's up to 54.5. So that's continuing to rise. And the same as in New Zealand, went from 66 to 71 to 74. So those two are rising while the rest are kind of on the wave, right? What's interesting is, and it's funny because Linda, you had sent me a link on it, and I think it was like maybe 3 minutes after I finished watching the link.
Oh, that's funny.
So we were doing the same thing at the same time. But what was interesting there was it's a guy named James Kaufman with the World News Report today, and he does the magnetosphere events. So what was going on there was every time, and the magnetosphere events are the solar winds, right, that are coming from the sun and coming towards the earth. And so what happens is, what he noticed on the 13th, 14th, somewhere around there, was as he was watching them, he was seeing a difference in something would start to happen, like an event would start, and then boom, it would be gone. Mm-hmm. But there was a time lapse that was happening. So he was seeing that there was, what did you say?
It was like an average of 4 hours of time would be missing out of the chart.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there was 4 hours most times, and it even went up to 7 hours at one point. And so what happened was, and he blames NASA. He says NASA is interfering with the data. I don't know a whole lot about it. Because this is actually the first time I've seen the solar winds. We've reported on the solar winds before with coming towards the earth and stuff. But this is the first time that I've actually seen where there's been missing data. Now, that to me is really interesting when we think about the blackout periods that happen with the Schumann's resonance. So what are those blackout periods? Is somebody interfering with the data there as well? And if so, what is actually happening here? Like, what is actually going on that there's information that are being blacked out from us, and why? Yeah. Right? So in one of the comments on that video, and it was on YouTube, so if you want to look it up, just magnetosphere events. James Kaufman, World News Report today, he aired it on March the 15th. You can go on and watch it for yourself. And but some of the comments, there was one comment, I just want to look, and he said that it seemed like once the winds started to hit between 600 and 700 kilometers an hour, they would take it out. So he doesn't know if the winds hit a lot higher or what happened and how long the events were. Like you said, they were averaging around 3 minutes, 4 hours, 13 minutes. But there was one section in particular that had gone over 7 hours that was actually wiped from the data. So there's stuff going on there that we are not aware of, which, there's lots of stuff in the world going on that we're not aware of, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And the other thing in the comments is people were commenting about during this time of having nausea, severe headaches, being off balance, those kind of things, which are kind of symptoms that we feel when the Schumann resonance goes off as well, right? So it's all quite interesting, and hopefully we'll be able to see more and more as time progresses as to what is actually happening there. But we know by a long shot, we know for sure that the Earth is changing, because with the Schumann's resonance that had stayed, at 7.83 for so many years, and then started moving just within the last, 8 years or so? Yeah. Since 2012, and then really started around 2017, then started going crazy in 2019, in October of 2019. So we know that changes are happening. We all feel it. It's just really exciting. It's an exciting time to be alive, really, because there's so much going on, right? Yeah. So what about the moon now? What's happening there?
So we have an interesting alignment happening with the planets this week to begin with, which is all affecting the energy of the moon and the energy of the planet as a whole. So we have a bunch of sextiles. So moon is sextile Neptune, and sextile means they're a perfect 60 degrees from each other. So, and then we have a trine, moon trine Pluto. So the sun is sextiling moon, the moon is sextiling Venus, as well as Neptune. So we have lots of influences coming in. So this sextile, the one that we are getting right now, is supposed to be a very happy, harmonious time. Now, I'm not an astrologer, so I don't know a whole lot about this, but it's supposed to be really happy, good, harmonious energy coming in for us at this time through this moon phase. So we're going into a waxing moon phase. That means that we've done the new moon. We're going into the other half of the moon going until we get to the full moon. So this is the waxing. We went into Aries on Saturday. So the Aries moon influence is really confident. It's really a time of high energy. It's, you're really able to develop relationships at this time. You're feeling confident in your creative skills. And it's just a really good assertive time. On Tuesday, we went into Taurus, and Taurus is a time of preservation. So it's a time to preserve, and it's more about your relationship to yourself. So it's we're doing a lot of planning for future. So planning and getting our resources ready and stuff like that. So this is the kind of phase that we're in right now. And then we move into Gemini tomorrow, just after supper. And so Gemini is all intellectual, right? So it's about, but you may feel you may want to avoid conflict, avoid confrontation. So you really may not have the communication to be able to work through certain things. And it could be a time of not feeling equal to others too. So sometimes these feelings might be coming in, but it's a great time to learn, right? So, and go through trainings or different communications that way. It's a really great time for that. And also maybe discovering some new spiritual gifts that we might have. So that is coming in until I believe we go into it tomorrow after supper, and we're changing again on Saturday. And that seems to be the pattern. Is it's about 2 to 3 days for each sign. So on Saturdays, usually that's when we're switching. So yeah, and then after Gemini, we go into Cancer.
Okay.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Interesting influences there coming in. All right, so today's episode we're talking about breath work. So what to expect in this episode is what is breath work? You know, right? What is it? Why do we want to do it? What are the benefits of breath work? And what are some of the different methods that are being used in these breathwork exercises? And I mean, we've done some research and we put some stuff together here, but there's so much more information, as with most of the topics that we talk about. There's just so much out there. So if you're interested in doing breathwork, maybe you'll be interested in something we present here today. But there's so much more out there that if you feel the need to go out and do some more research, please do that.
Absolutely. And a big thank you to Linda today, because Linda did the majority of the research today. I have been so busy. My daughter has just moved. And so I've been helping her a little bit there, as well as making some big changes here in my space. So I've been crazy busy, and Linda's done so much work today. Thank you. Well, not today, but this week. Thank you, Linda, for all the research that you've done. But what we're going to start with is, if you watched last week's episode, we had done an episode on the pineal gland. And we didn't get a chance to finish the pineal gland. So we just wanted to spend a little bit of time finishing that. But it kind of goes in with the breath work anyway, because in our day-to-day lives, I mean, we have enormous number of sensory experiences, right? That can activate our sympathetic nervous system. And that kind of sends us into this fight or flight mode. But we're all born with this energy inside of us, right? And, there's people call it life force energy or vital energy. It can be called universal energy, or whichever you want to call it, right? It's just that we're all born with it. And it's just to know how to tap into that, right? Because, it all talks about how everything is magnetic, and there's a North Pole and a South Pole, and the energy that flows through us, and all of that, right? So what we're going to do is to activate the pineal gland with breath. Okay, so it's pretty interesting. It's not a hard thing to do, but it's it's not a hard activity, I guess, but it'll take time to get through it. Anyway, so what happens is you focus on the pineal gland. So you send your focus to the pineal gland. It's about inhaling and exhaling. So there's a fluid that goes up and down our spine, right into our skull. It's the cerebral fluid, and that's there to protect us for any kind of trauma that happens. That creates buoyancy and stuff within our bodies. So what happens when we breathe is we're actually sending that fluid up and down our spine. And it only happens twice in a 24-hour period, but we can kind of force it with breath work. And by forcing it, we can actually activate our pineal gland. So it's all quite interesting. Linda had talked last week about the crystals that were in our pineal gland and how they have to be compressed in order to activate it. So what happens is, as we inhale, the sutures in our brain, in our skull, open up, and our tailbone, where our spine is, so this is our spine, our tailbone is at the end. And what happens is that actually opens up, and it allows the fluid to drain, right? And as you exhale, then it closes again, and it allows the fluid to go back. Okay, so in order to activate your pineal gland, what you're doing is, when you inhale, once you focus on your pineal gland, you inhale. As you're inhaling, you start to contract the lower part of your from your hips, I guess, up. So your bottom three chakras, so your root chakra, your sacral chakra, and your solar plexus, you want to start to contract those. And then as you inhale, once you've got your breath in, you hold your breath. Now, I'm not saying hold it for 2 minutes or 3 minutes. That's just, there's no need. But what happens is it starts to compress those crystals that are in your pineal gland. And as that compresses, then it electrically activates. Okay. And then as you release, it allows the fluid to go again, right? To come back up through. So you're actually turning on your brain receiver. And that's activating your pineal gland.
And I
So
love that exercise, and I love how you explained it, because it's really making me think of the Kundalini rising, right?
that's exactly what happens. So once you do that, I mean, it's not going to happen the first time you do it, but if you continuously do it, and I don't mean just sit there and do it for, an hour at a time. I mean, daily, a few times, if you practice that, you will eventually feel that energy release. And that is the Kundalini. So exciting.
It is. It totally
Yeah. Yeah. So, so I don't know where we are now, Linda. So you were going to get into breath work.
That's right.
So, and you're talking about how breath work is good, but I'm just going to say this last thing before you go on, Linda. We talk about breath, right? And how the breath work is important. But if we stop and think about it, we have so many things to sustain our life. Breath is one of them. Food, but we can go without food for up to 30 days, right? We can actually go without water for up to 6 days. But how long can we go without breath? We can't. Like 2 minutes, people can hold their breath. And that's, if you hold your breath longer than 2 minutes, you're pretty special. So breath, exactly. So breath is one of the most important. So it's not crazy to think of how much breath can do for us.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And you see so many references to breath too in so many different religions, so many different ancient practices, just over and over and over. Breath is such a important aspect. So what is breath? Breath is the exchange. So we use our muscles to pull in oxygen, and then we breathe out carbon dioxide, right? So that is what actually is happening, of course. But it's also what happens in the body with those little bones and those muscles contracting and expanding. That's really the key here, because this is where all the action is really happening. So we're just going to go over some of the breath references that we have through all of our ancient religious practices and all the gurus along the way. So prana from India, that they've referred to breath as prana. Chi from China, they refer to the energy that runs through the body as chi, but also the breath. Ki from Japan. Pneuma in ancient Greece, phren diaphragm, which is also ancient Greece. So they used phren and diaphragm. The pneuma and phren was interchanged in Greece. So they talked a lot about those two aspects. In Hebrew, they talked about the spirit breath. So that your breath is actually the essence of your spirit. The Genesis, they talk about the Lord, breathed energy or breathed the spirit into your life, right?
Which kind of goes with the first one, the last one you said, right? Your spirit energy, which is what you take with your first breath, right? Yeah, it's great.
Absolutely. And then in Latin, they refer to Ha, divine spirit, which is also your breath. I thought this one was interesting. Native Hawaii, they call Ha Aloha the presence of divine breath. Ha Aloha. And so there's so many more that aren't mentioned here because the breath is just so, so important. And it is something that a lot of these a lot of these ancients were practicing the breath to get into alternate conscious states of healing. Okay. So, your electrical impulses. So all of these states, when they're talking about using the breath, they all talk about when you close your eyes and you're doing these breath work, you'll see lights happening. And a lot of this is like what we were talking about in the beginning, is that activation of the pineal gland. And the pineal gland, when it gets activated, starts to be able to see what's happening inside your body, but it's also able to run on different frequencies and start to pick up energies in different frequencies. So when you're doing this breath work, you're activating that pineal gland to be able to connect with all of these different realities. Did you want to add anything to that?
No, that's absolutely it. It's just, you know, having that electricity inside of us. It's you can think about the electricity that's outside. We've got all kinds of power outside that helps with any activities on the external. And our pineal gland is like the internal electricity that kind of gets the magnets because we're electric. And then that's connecting to our biofield or our magnetic field that's all around us, which in turn integrates with everything else that we come into play with. So even coming in close proximity with another person, all of that electricity is kind of going back and forth, right?
Exactly.
It's so interesting.
Yeah, and so all of the practices that we're going to introduce today are talking about how we increase those electrical magnetic impulses with your breathing, which is like totally an amazing, incredible, right? So some of the topics that we're going to talk about today is holotropic breath work. So holotropic breath work came online in about 1970. And we're going to go into what each one is actually doing. Vivation breath work, so fully embrace life. The shamanic breath work. Clarity breath work, rebirthing breath work, and I'm sure a lot of us have heard of the recent Wim Hof breath work, right? Yeah. He's really made a big impact with his development and his scientific research in the breath work area. And he's done a lot of proof, proof that you're able to do a lot while you're breathing things out.
He's very well known as the Iceman.
Iceman, that's right. Yeah. Okay, so what do each of these methods, so when you research these methods, they're all kind of working towards the same idea, okay? So they're all trying to deepen your psychology. They're all trying to bring out positive self-development. They're all working to boost immunity. So this is another one, to process emotional pain and trauma. So almost everyone that I researched, they're all working to process emotional pain and trauma. The development of new life skills. So when we're doing this work, we're actually allowing this new information into our field and into the way that we're thinking. Develop self-awareness, enrich creativity. So a lot of these methods will actually encourage you to draw mandalas or totems after you're done, because you get into contact with these different aspects of yourself. It helps to improve relationships, increases confidence, joy, and happiness. It can help to overcome addictions, which is, I think that's so amazing. And they all talk about this. Decrease stress and anxiety, release negative thoughts, reduce angry reactions, helping chronic pain.
Absolutely. That's what I was just going to say, pain. Yeah.
Yep. Reduce depression.
I mean, Linda, if you look at that, sorry, not to interrupt you for a minute, but if you look at that, the first thing that came to my mind was, when you're giving birth, right?
Absolutely.
The pain is amazing. And what's the first thing we do is breath work, right? Breathe through the pain. So It's normal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that is, and also because of the emotional aspects and everything that you're going through in childbirth, like it's a very, it can be a very beautiful experience, but it can also be very traumatic.
Absolutely.
Right. And so
Super.
the more that you can focus your breath work and work through that, it just increases your experience in a very harmonious way.
Absolutely.
Can help with grief and
Yes.
PTSD as well.
Yes.
So when you look at the vastness, like that's a large list, and we're just talking about different types of breath work. That's it.
Hmm.
We're
Yeah,
just talking
for
about
sure.
different types of breath work. I just think it's so amazing.
It is. And I use so much breath work when I'm meeting with clients as well with the tuning forks. Like that's it's all about breath work, right? And the more you breathe, the more you can move things through.
That's right.
Because that's what it's about. It's all about moving through.
Yep. And a lot of my hypnosis and working with people through inner child work and all of that, sometimes it can get really overwhelming. And it's like, focus your breath,
Yeah.
focus in the moment. You're safe in your body, because this stuff can feel very real when you're going to these different dimensions, right? And the
Exactly.
breath
Exactly.
work helps you to work through those dimensions.
Hmm. Absolutely. And anyone who does healing modalities will know this.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so some of the different types of breathing that we see here. So we can see box breathing. So we're breathing out for 4, in for, or we breathe out for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4.
Yeah. It's like a box.
It's like a box,
Yeah.
and they all
Yeah.
have the same size edges.
Absolutely. So you inhale, hold, exhale, hold. Inhale, hold, exhale, hold.
Exactly. Um, the diaphragmic breath. So this is when you're concentrating more on the muscle of the diaphragm to move
Mhm.
downward. Kind of similar. I feel like this is the pineal gland kind of focused activation, right? Because
Similarity there.
yeah, so you're pushing those organs downwards, right? Which is going to put more pressure onto the tailbone. And so I feel, and it's also really good that breath work helps to cause those organs to release some of that toxin, some toxins in there too, so that you can get some
Mhm.
things moving in that area. So diaphragmic breath, I feel, is a big one. The pursed lips. So you're
Mhm.
breathing in through your nose and you're breathing out slowly,
Mhm.
very pursed lips. Um,
Like you're blowing on something to cool it off.
that's right. So Tara says she has a question. Sure, Tara, shoot. I'm just going to continue until you get your question out there.
Yeah, I'll have a look and then let you know what it is, Linda.
Yeah. So the 4-7-8 breathing. So that is breathing for 4 through the nose, holding for 7, and breathing out through the mouth very slowly for 8.
Mhm.
And I feel as though this one here is I feel like when I was doing my sweat, they were kind of trying to talk me into doing this type of breath work
Really?
in the Aboriginal
Wow.
context.
Because this type of technique, this 478, is a technique that is supposed to trick your mind into believing, into feeling like it's time for you to go to sleep. Because I've used it very often. If I have trouble falling asleep, which is not very often because I can pretty much sleep on a clothesline, but if if something happens that for whatever reason I'm having trouble falling asleep or whatever, I'll use this method. And really, it only takes me maybe 3 or 4 times and I'm out.
Interesting. I've never heard of
So,
that, but I know
yeah.
when you do the sweat, they really tell you to slow your breathing down
Mhm.
as much as possible because it does alter your state, right? Okay, so do you ladies breathe in through the nose, then through the mouth, then hold and breathe out?
Do you ladies breathe in through the nose and then breathe in through the mouth, then hold and breathe out? I've never done that.
I'm sure that I have done it unconsciously.
Well, but
But
it's, I'm not sure if I'm understanding. So you're in through the nose, then in through the mouth without exhaling.
yeah,
So I don't think I don't think that's something that I would do unconsciously.
I feel like
I
it is.
suppose maybe if we were talking, we probably would be, maybe. It's
Mhm.
not something that I've done consciously.
So this is something that she has started doing consciously.
Hmm. And how do you feel about that, Tara? Like give us an idea as to what's happening,
Mhm.
and where this type of breathing came from. Is it something that you read about? Is it
Yeah. So, or the mouth first, then the nose. But that's really interesting. I'd have to like see if it
I
connects you
mean,
to,
sorry, go ahead, Linda.
connects you to some alternate types of feelings inside the body of.
Yeah. I mean, I very often will breathe in through the nose, hold, and then out through the mouth, or vice versa. But
Mhm.
I'm not sure if you're meaning breathing in and in through the nose and the mouth before exhaling. Is that what you mean?
So she's saying she's get a lot of more energy flow within.
A lot more free flow within, she's saying. Or the
Interesting.
mouth first, then the nose. Yeah, that's interesting. Is there, where did you hear of it, Tara? Is it something, it had come to me through meditation? Oh, that's interesting.
I
That
love the
is interesting. I love it. You're going to have to tell us more.
yeah.
That you've started doing that today. So let us know in comments or send us a message to let us know what else is happening and what else is coming to you through meditations.
Yeah.
This is interesting. Yeah, very
The-
interesting.
yeah. So the next one is the alternate nostril breathing.
Mm,
So you're breathing in
in
and then
through one's eye.
and then
Yeah,
and they say
yeah,
this is activating the right and left hemispheres of the brain.
right.
So circular breathing, they say it's continuous breathing without no pause.
Right.
So you're in, like no pause. So you're going, and if you do, sorry.
That made me think of childbirth.
So when you do the Wim Hof, they do circular breathing, and I think there's
We
a
do.
couple other ones that we go through. They're doing circular breathing.
Mhm.
Yeah. And again, I'm going to mention it again because it's come up so many times in the research with breath work, is the mandalas. Like
Mm.
the mandalas, those circular, after you're done doing all of the breath work and whatever's come out for you, a lot of these practitioners are getting people to draw a round mandala, and every geometrical symbol and so much comes out in the healing of this mandala. And so you can do a labyrinth sometimes. It depends on what has come out for you. Okay, so
Yeah.
the holotropic, that was established in 1970 by Dr. Stan Grof and Christina Grof. The goal is to improve the psychological, spiritual, and physical well-being of those who participate. And you're actually not allowed to direct people in holotropic breathwork unless you've been certified.
Mm.
So it's a pretty intense practice from what I've read. So it's one person is laying down and another person is sitting next to them. They're using circular breathing.
Mhm.
And you're not allowed to practice this if you have certain health issues. So cardiovascular, high blood pressure, different health issues on different types of medications or taking certain herbs, you're not allowed to do this. And apparently it gets very intense. So one person is there to anchor you and assist your visions and what's coming up for you while you're doing these circular breathing.
Okay, that's what I want to do now. I have to find somebody who does that. It's just
And
so interesting, the different types and what they bring, right?
yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
there's very specific types of music that's playing at
Mhm.
the same time that you're doing this exercise. And so it goes on for about 30 minutes. And you go through different things, and the person that is there to support you is taking notes and, you know, grounding you and kind of making you sense that you're still in reality, your body is still safe and grounded in reality while you're doing this intense breath work. Very
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, it does sound amazing. It's been
So
really.
have you done that yourself, Linda?
No, I've
No.
not done
Okay.
holotropic. And so what they say this brings about is sometimes you're having mystical experiences. So you may see yourself as a completely different being in a completely different environment. You may have past life memories. You may have ancestral memories. And so many different lights. Lights is a big one. They talk about different lights and shapes and things that start coming in when you're doing this holotropic breath work.
Amazing.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting, like holotropic, it's like you're getting a hologram of different images, right? And I feel like that's why they called it that, because they really wanted to tap into, you know, that holographic experience that you have. So there was lots of testimonials too of people who were just crazy about this experience that they had.
So interesting.
Yeah, it is very interesting. So rebirthing, so conscious energy breathing. Again, it was developed by Leonard Orr. I couldn't find the year this was developed. So within my meditation, I was shown the upper chakras and the lower chakras. Then I was shown breathing through, this is through Tara. Breathing through the mouth was more for lower, and in through the nose was for the upper. So I was shown each breath, then shown both at the same time. Wow, that is awesome.
That is interesting. That is really, really interesting.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, so developed by Leonard Orr. We're not sure the year, but the purpose is for emotional storage that has become detrimental to the mind and the body. Again, you need a guided instructor, and it's long circular breaths. So you're taking long breaths in and long breaths out with no breaks. And a lot of times he's saying that what happens is you get emotional memories start to get triggered in this. And you get these inspirations of what you needed from these emotional experiences. And then it brings you to higher senses of peace and higher levels of consciousness through doing these long breaths. So the next one was clarity breath work by Ashana Solaris and Dana DeLong. And this one here starts with a counseling session. So you sit down and you start talking about stuff that's going on with you and what you would like to get out of the breathwork experience. And then you go into the breath work, which they didn't talk about what types of breath they were doing, but you get to this emotional release. And then you go and back and talk about what's happened through this experience. So it's more of a counseling with breath work and then a completion of the counseling with what came out through the breath work. Interesting. Yeah. Vivitation, to fully embrace life. This was created by Jim Leonard in 1979. Now, this one I thought was really cool, is the combination of principles found in yoga, tantra, and meditation awareness. So he's taken all of these three aspects and brought them to this practice. Yeah, awesome. And it's the integration of personal empowerment. So the main emphasis of this is to practice focusing on the strong energies in the body and using the energy to guide the process. So the whole process is about breathing circularly. So you're breathing in and out, long breaths again, but you're focusing on different energies in the body. So you find one energy that you focus on and you start to breathe into
Mm.
the energy, breathe out the energy, breathe into the energy. And you're focusing on completely relaxing the body. So you're moving around with the energy. Now, it didn't talk about needing a practitioner in this practice. So I think it's something that you can learn to do for yourself. And it brings awareness around the details of the energy of the body. So if you have pain, if you
Mhm.
have anxiety, anything like that, so you can bring that awareness with the breath in those areas.
Nice.
And it's saying that that you can integrate ecstasy into your physical being by doing breath work in this way.
Mhm. I love it that there's some breath work that we can actually learn to do on our own, because there are times that we that get into that fight or flight mode, and we have these tools inside of us that we can use to actually start our parasympathetic nervous system again, and come back to that state of balance, right? So I love it that we can actually learn to do certain ones on our own.
Absolutely. And that's
Mhm.
what's so wonderful about it, right?
Absolutely.
So the shamanic breath work. Now, this one is a little bit unique. The purpose of this breath work is to reclaim your inner wild being. They use chakra healing music in the background.
Mm.
So when you're doing this, and they do different breath work. So they'll use the box breath work, they use the circular breath work. Um, those are the two that I came across so far when doing that research. But they use different types of breath work at different times of the internal experience. And so the session is focused the energy on body work and recovering lost parts of the soul to release unwanted and to release unwanted energies.
Mm.
So
Interesting.
they talk a lot about journeying through a lot of the past life experiences that we've had in this one. And I think it's the combination of music and the different types of breath work that brings those memories in.
Mhm.
But I have seen even the breath work of concentrating on different energies in your body. Like I've seen myself go into past life memories just
Oh,
doing that,
absolutely. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
and being able to clear and also along my ancestral line too. I've seen being able to focus and clear a bunch of crap out of the ancestral line just by focusing on different energies in my body and doing just breath work of just being in the moment, because sometimes it can be intense and the breath work just seems to
Mhm.
take it down,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, and then the shamanic breath work finishes off with a painting of your experience. So they really want you to paint what feelings you had, what colors you're drawn to, and this all helps to define meaning to what you went through during your breath work and during your experience.
Mhm. Interesting, eh?
It's amazing. It truly
It
is.
really
I
is.
love it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then in the last one, we're talking about the Wim Hof. So the
Mhm.
Wim Hof talks about using breath work to get comfortable in different uncomfortable environments, like being really cold. And the cold can bring a lot of value to the human body experience. And it increases your energy. It can help you to release different types of emotions and grief and all of these things. And
Mhm.
he has done the science behind how concentrating on your breath during these times of extremes, like in ice cold water or in like cold environments, being outside in the winter,
Mhm.
it can help to expand your consciousness when you're not in those environments.
Mhm.
Um, so he started to develop this when his wife committed suicide. He was in intense senses of grief, and they had, how many kids did they have? Was it 5? I
I
thought it
thought
was
it was 3. Maybe it is 5. I could be wrong, but he was left alone with at least 3.
at least 3, but I thought it was more than that.
It could be. It could be.
Because I
I
remember
read
thinking,
it.
that's a
I
lot of
read it a
kids.
while back. Yeah. Oh, well, it could be. I read it a while back. So I actually participated in, he has 3 free classes on his website. It's wimhof.wimhofmethod.com, WIMHOF method.com. And he talks about 3 basic methods, and he shows them in 3 separate free sessions. So I actually did the free sessions. And the first one that I had done, it doesn't take long. Like I don't even remember how long it was because it was a while back. But it's funny because we talked about breath work, doing breath work this week. And I thought, I'm going to get out those free sessions again. And I'm going to get my husband to do them with me. And then we're going to see how that's going to go, because I checked out the prices for doing further courses, right? And I'll tell you why. Not that it brought up anything in me for just those few sessions. And I actually only did the first one. I have to be perfectly honest. But when I did the first session, because what happens is he gets you to breathe at a certain rate, right? And then he gets you to hold your breath. But when you feel like you need to take a breath, you don't exhale, you inhale. And you do that again. And then you only breathe out after. Well, Linda, have you ever tried it?
I have.
Okay. Because the very first time I did his breathing, because what it does is it brings all this oxygen into your body. And when I held my breath, like, if you know me, I can hold my breath for like maybe 15 seconds. And I feel like I'm going to blow, right? The first time I did it was an hour and 40 seconds, an hour. Oh my God, a minute and 40 seconds. I held my breath a minute and 40 seconds on the first time that I did it. So I was amazed. And I thought, there's something to this, right? And then life went on and you kind of forget, but now it's coming back to me again. And actually a friend of mine, Dawn, had mentioned it to me. Her and her husband had started doing it. Now, I don't know if she's still doing it or not, but it's really interesting. And there's also another guy, I think, that started it, Yves Leblanc. He does Akashic records and different things as well, I believe. So he started doing it as well. So there's quite a few that have actually latched on to the Wim Hof. And yeah, so I want to start back. We should do it together, Linda.
We should. I agree.
Yeah.
Because it's so powerful. And okay, so you had 3 different breath works that he did, or is it 3?
No, he says there's the one that I did was 1 apparently. But in each of his free sessions, there's 3 free sessions. And from what I understood, there's 3 methods in those 3 different sessions.
Okay. So I only did the one method where you breathe circular, nonstop, right?
The first
Long
one.
breaths. And then you do that 30 times, and then you take a deep breath and you hold it.
Yeah, exactly. That's the first session. That's the first free session.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then if you, after a while, you feel like you need to take a breath, you don't breathe it all out. You breathe in again.
Yeah, exactly.
Hold it again until you feel like,
Yeah. And what happened, it's so weird because you don't even feel like you need to let the air out. Like it's so amazing. The feeling is so amazing. It's like, do I really need to breathe? Like, it's so cool. And you know how when you normally hold your breath, you kind of feel everything rushing to your head, like this, you feel like you're going to explode, right?
Yeah.
There's none of that.
No.
There's none of that in this method. So it's really cool.
It is
I'm
really.
glad you tried it.
Oh yeah, I did it with Ella, even Eric. I had Eric doing it. Everybody was doing it
Mm,
because we all wanted to
awesome.
see how long, because you can hold your breath for so long after you do
How
it.
long did you hold it after?
Well, the very first time, I think I got to about 50 seconds and then I had to take
Okay.
a breath in,
Okay.
but when
Yeah.
I did it with Ella and Eric, I think I held my breath. It was like almost 2 minutes.
Wow. See,
And
my
little,
first time, I was at 1 minute and 1 minute 39 seconds or something.
yeah.
It was like, and that was my first time. And like I said, for me, 15 seconds and I'm like turning all red and right. So I was quite impressed
Yeah.
with this Iceman.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really cool. So what he does is he puts himself in extreme temperature situations and uses his breath to calm the body and allow the mind to relax in those situations. And what that does is it expands his consciousness when he's not in those situations
Mhm.
to
And
deeper.
the other thing that he talked about it doing too is killing viruses off
Yeah.
and killing disease off in his body.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he says what that does is it resets the body's natural rhythm, and this increases your well, I mean, all of those things that we talked about the benefits
right,
of breath work is pretty much, he talks about all those benefits. It's great for
everything.
your heart, it's great for your cardiovascular system, it's great for your lung capacity, it's good for like
Right.
pretty much everything. It's
Mhm.
really good for your body to do this. Yeah.
That's crazy.
And
It makes me wonder, that about people who have terminal illness like cancer and that type of thing. If something like this would make any difference.
it's yeah, I mean a lot of that terminal illness and when your body's out of balance, it's the body trying to tell you that there's something wrong. So we in our
Absolutely.
society are so disconnected from what's happening in the body. And if you
Absolutely.
go to the doctor, they say, oh, don't worry about it, it's nothing you're eating, it's nothing you're doing, it's nothing. So then we continue that disconnection, right? So the more we're disconnected
Absolutely.
from the physical body, the less that we can tap into its natural ability to heal itself. And by doing breath work,
Absolutely.
what you're doing is you're allowing the body to speak
To
to you
heal itself. Yep.
and to heal it, to tell you what it needs to heal, right?
Yep.
So it's that
Absolutely.
body energy coherence that we really need to get back into connection with. So the
Absolutely.
risks of doing some of these techniques
Mm.
is hyperventilation, right? So not being able to control the breathing, right? So when you get into hyperventilation, it's just doing it on its own and you're not able to get a hold of it,
You're no longer in control. Yeah.
right? It can cloud your vision, cognitive changes, right? So we know we can get dizzy and kind of like, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Off balance a little bit.
Right? So decreased blood flow to the brain, uh, dizziness, heart palpitations, muscle spasms, tingling in the extremities. So, all of these things can be contraindicated. That's why you have to be very careful about your health state when you're doing these extreme breath works, right?
Mhm.
Um,
And also, if it's something that's extreme and you've never done it before, don't do it alone. Just in
absolutely.
case. Just in case. Don't be doing stuff alone, right?
Yeah. It's and
So, I
it's
mean, there's reasons why some people, like you had mentioned in the first one, how it has to be done with somebody who is qualified to be able to do that with you. So make sure that you know the difference, right?
yes, absolutely. Um, yeah, so so they don't recommend people to do intense breath work. Not that you can't do breath work, just not the intense breath work. If you are on certain types of medication
Hmm.
or using certain types of herbs, are pregnant or breastfeeding, have breathing issues like asthma, if you have cardiovascular issues, things like that. We don't want to be doing intense breath work. Not that you can't do breath work,
That's right.
just maybe kind of take it slow. Have high blood pressure.
Mm.
This was a big one. History of aneurysms, right?
Oh, yes, that makes sense, especially if you're holding your breath at all.
Exactly. Recent surgeries or certain types of injuries. We want to be careful doing breath work here.
Mhm.
So maybe contacting somebody, asking a little bit more information about that. Severe psychiatric symptoms. So if you have like schizophrenia,
Mm.
extreme bipolar, things like that, maybe breath work may not be the best option for you. There might be some other or certain types of breath work might be the way to go. And also vision issues.
Mm. Makes sense. Yeah.
So, and then another note, after age 20, we start to lose
Yes.
our lung capacity. So that exchange of oxygen to carbon monoxide starts to reduce after the age of 20.
Mhm.
And the more we can do breath work, different types of breath work, whatever that is, it builds those muscles and it increases your ability to do this exchange, which is really important over time, right? So it helps to keep the body young, helps to keep the muscles healthy, and do all of that. And it also just maintains that connection to those deeper emotions doing that
Mhm.
breath work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like Linda had said earlier, Linda's just touched on
Yeah,
what types of breath work there are. There's so many different types of breath work. So if it's something that interests you, by all means, do some more research and, you know, do whichever it is that you're called to do, right? So
exactly.
I was interested. I saw a couple there. They were the lion's breath and the hummingbee breath. And
Mhm.
both of them incorporate your voice in with breathing. So those are two quite interesting that I'll probably have another look at and try. They're not difficult to do. One the hummingbee involves holding your ear, and you know how if you're you know how Linda, if you're singing or whatever and you want to hear what you sound like, you're going to hold your ear. Both Linda and I sing, so uh, that's you'll hear yourself better, right? And this one in this hummingbee talks about holding your ear while you're breathing and making a humming noise. So, and the lion one gets you down on all fours, and your facial, I'm not going to do it here because it's not pretty, but anyway. Those are
That's
just two more
awesome.
that are quite interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can
So
hear, like, when you plug your ears and you breathe, you can hear the wind moving
yes,
through those.
absolutely.
So that's so cool. I think that
Yeah,
that's so awesome too. And
so cool.
chanting is also like, we didn't even touch on chanting at all today, which I think we
Um,
should do a show on chanting.
I think so too. And Linda and I both, we've talked about this a few times now. We're both being called to chant. So it's probably something that's going to happen over the next little while. So much going on.
I
Yeah.
agree. And so what do you think about doing the next episode on chanting then instead?
Oh, well, it's up to you. We could do which on chanting or the Mandalas. Okay.
Had
So
plans
why don't we
on the
do this?
Mandela. Yeah.
Yeah, we had talked about doing it on the Mandalas. So whoever's watching, I don't know how many we have watching right now, Linda, but whoever's watching, what would you rather see? An episode on Mandalas or an episode on chanting? And why don't we just leave it up to everybody and we'll see what they come back with,
Yeah.
and then it'll be next week when we announce, or we usually put out an ad
Yeah.
for the next one. So by Monday, we'll have it out as to what the next session will be. How's that? Is that okay? So
That's
it's either going to
great.
be Mandalas or chanting, and yeah, so that's what it'll be. So in the meantime, did you have anything else on breathing, on
Nope.
breath?
All
No?
done.
Okay. So in the meantime, I do have a shout out this week. And Mandalas. Tara says Mandalas. Okay, Mandalas it is.
Yeah.
So I do have a shout out this week, and her name is Nicole Bronson. Nicole is from Wisconsin. And Nicole added me on Facebook, oh, I'd say probably about maybe a year, maybe 2 years ago. I don't know. My concept of time is so crazy. It's something that happened like 6 months ago. I might say it's 3 years ago. Something that happened 3 years ago, I might say, oh, a couple of weeks ago. So it's just really strange as to what's happening right now, right? In any case, when Nicole added me on Facebook, I had sent her a message and asked her if I knew. She actually sent me a message and said, she was reaching out to people who appeared to be like-minded, because she was going through this transition in her life to where she was coming about. And Nicole she's just a sweetheart. So that it had to be a little while ago, because I've been following her since then. And she's very raw. She's very raw. She will say whatever she's feeling at the time, and there's no holes barred, and she will come out with it. But Nicole also she's just such a beautiful soul, and she's doing so many different things that is so interesting. But she also has she's a mom of three. She's a natural wellness warrior, is what she calls herself. She's certified in massage therapy. She spiritually in tune. She's an intuitive healer. She loves anything to do with being the artistry. So she does paintings. And she also has, which is she's so good at, is she does jewelry with crystals. So she has her own Etsy shop. And she's a stay-at-home mom, right? So she's doing all of this stuff on the side, but she's just beautiful, 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 Nicole. Nicole, now she's added some names in here. I also always known her as Nicole Bronson, but under Facebook, you will find her as Nicole Peregrine Falcon Bronson. So I'll put her link for her Etsy store in the comments. But yeah, give her a follow, or send her a friend request or whatever. And she's great. She's great.
So Nick was saying, Nick Giannette, he's saying, let's do both. Let's do mandalas and chanting.
And chanting. Oh, look that now. I wonder, can we fit two in the same? We can do whatever we want to do. So we can fit two in the same.
We can do both.
Right? We can do both, Nick.
That's right.
We're going to do that. Good.
Awesome.
That's great. Oh my goodness. Thank you guys for watching again today. We are always so grateful for those that stop by, whether you stop by for 3 minutes, or you stop by for 13 seconds, or you stop by for the full hour. We love to see you stop in and have a listen to what it is we're talking about. We are so passionate about what we both do. And so we love you. Thank you for stopping in, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.